Welcome to episode 5 of Foraging and Feasting. We are in series 2 of our wonderful programme. We are in spring, it is March, and it is a glorious, beautiful day. We can hear the birds in the trees. We can literally hear the ground groaning with edible food. But one thing that I've noticed when I've been meeting customers recently and taking people out on walks is something keeps cropping up, and that is we don't live in the beautiful part of Cornwall that you do. Maybe you live in a more built up urban area, maybe you're in a large village or a town or even a city. Where is safe for you to find wild food, and can you eat wild foods in these areas? So today I'm taking you around the built up urban area of one of the largest villages in Cornwall, and that is Millbrook, where I am from and where I live on the Rame Peninsula. Now, we started off years and years ago as a tiny village, and we have grown into a densely populated area, but we are very, very fortunate in that we have a green, progressive council, that we don't use herbicides and pesticides in our environment. In fact, we use a really awesome thing called foam stream to keep weed control down on the streets, which is a mixture of a sugar and oil solution which is biodegradable. So nothing nasty is getting sprayed on the plants where we are. We do have lots of dog walkers, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about dogs when we're out wandering around. But today we're going to find 5 wonderful spring edibles that you can find in an urban area, especially around parks and gardens. So without further ado, welcome to Spring Foraging and Feasting. So the first plant on our list today is so exciting for me because it is one of the oldest flowering plants known to humankind. In fact, it predates humankind. This tree has been fossilized, and they've found fossils that are over 100 million years old. So how exciting that we are literally stood by a living piece of history. Now, this tree is known as the Magnolia, and the reason why we're focusing on this today as number 1 is that you only really find it in parks and gardens and urbanized areas. And when you're walking around villages and towns, even cities, you'll find lots of these trees now at this time of year in full bloom. Look how beautiful the petals are. This is a pink magnolia, and you'll see that they've gone from tiny little buds which look like little closed lanterns, if I just pull one off here, and then they open up into these absolutely gorgeous, almost prehistoric looking massive petal forms. And then you'll see what's known as the pineapple of the magnolia, which is this little piece of the seed inside the petals, just hanging out, looking like something crazy, as if a dinosaur could walk past at any moment. So is this tree actually edible? You'll see lots of things foragers talking about on social media platforms at the moment, or talking about pickled magnolia blossoms or how to eat magnolia. Yes, they are edible, and yes, they do work as a wonderful pickle or as a really great vinegar. But they're not just a pickling ingredient, they're not just for your vinegars. As beautiful, delicate and floral as they are, these are a lovely salad ingredient, and they can be used as a base to create starters and nibbles for people as they come around for dinner at your house. And when we get back to the cookery section, we'll be showing you how to turn the petals almost into an edible plate, how they can hold other beautiful ingredients to be part of a really stunning dish. So the magnolia tree, what do they taste like? Well, depending on the magnolia, they can have a gingery taste, a pineapple taste, a cardamom taste. They work really well with cucumber, with carrot, with all kinds of things. They are a wonderful spring nibble. Have a walk around your town, your village, find your nearest magnolia tree, come and get your buds. When you're harvesting them, if you get the closed buds like this, they're sweeter. The larger opened buds slightly become more bitter when you have them when they're this sort of size. So when you're looking for a real floral, delicate flavour, try to pick the buds like this. And obviously don't strip the entire tree, take what you need, leave the rest for the pollinators and the bees, because although these trees like to be pollinated with the wind, the bees still really appreciate these for making their honey. So number 1, the wonderful, beautiful, prehistoric magnolia. Number 2 on our list today then brings us into a park. Now you'll find when you're foraging in urban areas, it will be to parks that you come, and we are by the lakeside here in Millbrook in a well-walked local park, very popular with dog walkers, very popular with families, very popular with foragers. Now, I said at the start in our introduction, you do have to be careful about dog urine. Although we're in an area where they don't spray herbicides and pesticides, we use very organic things. And if you are going to look around your local area and your local parks, do check in with your local authority or local council about the kind of things they do spray on your areas of greenery. However, we're safe here from that, but we do have a lot of dogs. Now, I'm going to come down to the very bottom of this plant and I'm going to show you how you can tell if a dog has definitely weed on something. What you're looking for is a plant that looks a little bit like this. It is brown, it is yellow, it looks almost like it's been burnt, and that is a clear indication of urine, whether that's dog, human or otherwise. So we wouldn't want to be picking anything like that to put into our salad bowl. But when we're looking at this plant, number 2 on our list today, are Alexanders, we are looking that they have grown to at least 3 feet in height, giving us a nice area of veggie selection. You know that no dog has a leg high enough to cock and spray all over it. Now, Alexanders is a plant that we talked about at the very beginning of series 2, when the plants were in their young growth stage in the autumn. And now we are in the spring and they are in full bloom. And it's the flowers of Alexanders that I want to talk to you about. Alexander flowers. Now, we know that this family of plant is in the Umbellifer family, the Umbellifer. And we know with that family we need to be extremely cautious because within it we have the 2 very poisonous members, our hemlocks, water hemlock dropwort and hedge hemlock. Now, growing just behind our Alexanders today is water hemlock dropwort. So it's good for us to see these 2 plants together and how we can differentiate between the 2. So Alexanders, now it's quite obvious because they are in full flower, and the flowers have a greeny yellow-like colour. The flowers of water hemlock dropwort are white and they flower later in the year. Now, don't always take that as a guide for identifying the 2 because plants are always flowering at different times because of climate change. We do have to take more identification steps than just looking at what's flowered and what hasn't. So when we look at the leaves of Alexanders, we can see that the edges of the leaves are serrated like the edge of a knife. When we look at the leaves of the water hemlock dropwort, we can see that they are lobes, they are raised in a lobe-like pattern around the edges rather than this sharp serrated-like texture. Another way to identify them is when we look at Alexanders, we can see that around their stems they have what we call a sheath, which is like this little sleeping bag, stripy little sleeping bag around the sides of the stem. And when we come to look at the water hemlock dropwort, it doesn't have those sheaths. It's a much different colour green when you see them side by side, and the leaves of our water hemlock dropwort are clustered together really tightly on the stem, much more resembling a coriander than the Alexanders, which resemble more like a celery. And all of those plants are in the same family. They're all members of the carrot family, so they do look similar, but there are very obvious differences. They grow side by side. Both of these plants like to have their feet wet, so make sure you are getting the right plants, this wonderful wild edible Alexanders, and not the water hemlock dropwort, which is fatal and can kill you. If in doubt, leave it out. But when we live in this part of the world, in Devon and Cornwall, this is one of your staple vegetables and you should be eating it as often as possible. So, what am I eating now in this plant? It is blossom season, it's flower season. This is in 2 stages of flower. This one has fully opened, so you can see the spokes like an umbrella or sticking out with these beautiful, delicate little pom-pom-like flowers on the end. And they have such a wonderful celery, asparagus-like flavour that I'm picking off those buds and I'm incorporating them into all my bread doughs at the moment. So when I'm making focaccias, when I'm making loaves, I'm pushing those into the dough and it's giving this lovely, rich, perfumed flavour. Another thing I'm doing is I'm taking the heads and I'm dipping it into tempura mixture and I'm shallow frying them, and then I'm dipping them into yogurt or sweet chilli sauce. I'm also just picking them off and I'm putting them into the salad bowl to give a different texture through all the different leaves and a really punchy little flavour. And I'm putting them into pickles and pickling vinegar, and they go really nicely paired with your magnolia blossoms in a mixed pickle. Our little flower buds which have yet to fully come into their umbrella shape. These look like little broccoli florets, and I'm using them just like broccoli. So I'm putting them into Alexander cheese bakes in a baking dish. I'm putting them into the stir-fry dish like little broccoli heads. They're a great, beautiful springtime ingredient. They are very soon going to turn into seed, and then the seeds are like peppercorns. So before they do start to turn to seed, come and use your beautiful floral vegetable heads of the wonderful Alexanders. Number 3 on our list today is another plant that we're revisiting, but we can't not revisit it because we are in wild allium season. The air is rife with onions and garlic, and everywhere I go I seem to see this particular plant. 3-cornered leek, 3-cornered garlic. It's actually an onion, a wild onion. There are no wild leeks in this country, but we do have all these beautiful alliums. Now 3-cornered, if you'll remember when we first met this plant, it was just in its early stage of growth, and we said it's 3 corners because it has this centre crease down the middle of the leaf. Now they've come a long way since then, and they're now all blooming in this glorious bell-shaped white flowers, and the flowers are also edible. A lot of people don't realise that, but with this particular plant they are. Now when we look at the flowers of 3-cornered leek or wild garlic, these particular wild garlic, they're beautiful. When you look inside, they're this white little flower, and then they've got this stripy green line which run down each individual petal. It looks almost like a candy that you could eat, although nobody's going to be kissing you if you eat this, and you'll certainly be keeping the vampires away. How do I eat the flowers? Well, they're lovely to be pressed into bread dough, they're nice run through a salad, they're great as tempura, they're wonderful things just to nibble as you're wandering around. Just give them a wash. You know, people worry that these kind of areas are going to be covered in dog pee. Well, there's going to be worse things sprayed on the vegetables that you buy from the supermarkets. That's why on those little plastic bags it has wash before use. Okay, when you're out in the wild, the worst thing you're going to encounter, as long as you're in a herbicide and pesticide free area, is animal urine. Give everything a good wash and you are ready and good to go, because you'll be missing out if you let that put you off this wonderful, beautiful British wild edible. So this is our 3-cornered leek, our 3-cornered garlic, and today we're going to be eating the beautiful floral petals and our lit and unopened flower buds, just like this. They're also lovely to munch on and to put into pickles or to make capers. So there we are, that is number 3 on our list today. On then to number 4. Now this is so ridiculously common, so ridiculously easy, and you'll be surprised how many people say to me, surely that's not edible. In fact, yes, it is edible. And I remember once a wonderful story years ago where a mum emailed me to say that her daughter had been found eating these in the garden, and was she going to be okay? Was she going to survive? The common daisy. You know, we are in that time of year where lawns are just becoming pickled with this really beautiful, humble little plant. And as children, especially if you're a little girl, you might remember poking your nail through the stem, pushing them all together and making daisy chains to put floral headdresses and stuff. They're great. I love these. I put them into the salad bowl. They're an edible flower. And a really curious thing about a common daisy is that some people can taste the flavour of pineapple in the centre disc of the daisy, and some people can't. So when I'm doing workshops with children or adults, I always say who can taste the pineapple and who can't, and we do 2 little lines to see, you know, which one can and which one can't. They're a wonderful, beautiful ingredient. They're so underrated, they're so underloved, and I'm going to show you today one little recipe that I do incorporating daisies in my diet. So the common daisy, do try it. Lovely little wild edible plant. Number 5 on our list today then is in bloom absolutely everywhere you go at the moment, from towns to parks to villages to their borders of cities. They've been planted by councils, people have grants for them. Here is the very common, very beautiful Primrose, Primula. Now, it wasn't until long ago that we couldn't pick these anymore. They were overpicked by the Victorians. They were made into wines and vinegars, they were made into curds, they were sent away to London in little posies, and so they were protected and you couldn't use them as a food. But now they're on the comeback, they're on the rise, and you can see that just where I'm sitting on the edge of this urban park, we've got a children's skate park behind us, this lovely patch of flowers growing. Now primrose flowers have a lemony butter-like flavour to them. They're delicate and they're beautiful, they're umptuous, and they should be in your salad bowl at the moment. They just make everything look alive, look summery, look hopeful for things to come. Not just these little yellow flowers with their darker flower in the middle, but also the different colours of primula. Just growing next to the yellow ones here, we've got this lovely vivid purple colour, and I'm going to be using these today in our recipe to really give a flavour and a look of spring. But the leaves of primrose are also edible, and I'm going to pull out the primrose leaf. Before they've flowered, they're less bitter and they're sweeter. So we look to the leaves really as one of our staple winter vegetables. And then in the spring we're looking to the flowers. But you can still eat the leaves at this time of year. They're much better cooked, I find. So if you have a pan and you put these in and you fry them in just a little bit of oil, they make a nice crispy green accompaniment to things like mashed potato. If you're doing sort of mashed potato and sausages, or mashed potato and tempeh or tofu if you're vegan. Have a little crispy primrose leaf on the side, a little bit of balsamic glaze, really brings it out in flavour, kind of like a bitter cabbage or a dark rocket. But we are going to be focusing on the lovely flowers today, and now we're going to go and cook and give you a little recipe with all these wonderful spring leaves. Here we are then in the cookery section of our video today, and we bring you to a skate park. How urban can you get? We've been around the park, we've been around the edges, we've picked our beautiful floral blooms, and we're going to turn these edible flowers and flavours into art. What on earth am I talking about? Well, this month I have mostly been making focaccia, breads that people can enjoy, which are also very beautiful. Now, on a very basic level, this focaccia has been pressed with primrose flowers, with alexander leaves, with sorrel blossoms, but we are going to do something even more spectacular today. We are going to be making our primrose, daisy and magnolia, three-cornered garlic and alexander focaccia. We're also going to be putting our magnolia petals into canapé cups with vegetables, sprinkling them with Japanese vinegars and sesame seeds. So this really is a magical springtime lunch dish brought to you in an urban built-up area. So how to begin? Right, how do we make focaccia? It's one of the easiest breads that we can make. You're going to need some bread flour. Now this one is a seeded bread flour. It doesn't matter what you have. People always say to me, well, how much do I put in? What do I put in? I do everything by eye, as you know if you've been watching these series. So put in some flour into a bowl, and then you're going to need to add some water. How much water? Well, you want a sort of, not a firm dough, you want quite a light dough. So go by eye until you're getting the right consistency, of which I'll show you in a minute. I want to put in some yeast. A sprinkle of yeast. I want to put in some salt. Now this is a Himalayan pink salt. You could use a table salt. Any salt that you have in the house is fine. Give that a stir. Now I can already see just by mixing that around that I need more water. So in we go with some more. Pour that there. Now you could use a sparkling water, which might give it a bit more of a rise and a bit more of a bubble, but still water, tap water is absolutely fine. Now this is great. This is kind of the consistency that I'm looking for, a very loose, almost a batter rather than a stiff dough. And what's great about focaccia is there's no kneading involved. Okay, so we're just going to make those ingredients come together, and then in an oil-lined baking tray. So this is a baking tray, and you want to get one with a deep edge, okay? You don't want a flat one, because what you find is this dough is going to rise over time on its own, and you don't want a volcano of dough coming over the side. Messy, horrible to clean. So make sure you've got a nice thick edge on your baking tray. Pour that gloopy bread mixture into the tray. Okay. Not easy to do with a wooden fork. Make sure you've got a good wooden spoon if you're in your kitchen at home. So spread that dough out across the tray. Now not too much. What you don't want to do is put too much dough in, and then it will rise too high over the sides. So you're looking at probably about an inch. So it's covering an inch on the bottom. There we are. Now, this is where your Bob Ross art style imaginations come into play. I recently did these focaccias with children, and we had some wonderful designs, everything from dragons being created to families to meadows. I think I'm going to stick with a wild sort of spring but urban theme. So what am I going to do? First of all, I'm going to take some of my 3-cornered leek, 3-cornered garlic. And I'm going to move this so you can see. And I think I'm going to represent these by, if I just do that, maybe you can see without my dough coming out. I'm going to push those into the dough so it looks like they're just growing out of the bottom of the tray. Beautiful. There. And we've got another lovely one here. Okay. And now I want to do a magnolia tree. How on earth am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to get a longer stalk of my 3-cornered leek, push it up the tray, as so. You can see there. And then I'm going to get my magnolia petals, remembering that they are our ancestors. These were here before humans. Can you imagine that the dinosaurs, even before the dinosaurs, these plants were beautifying the planet with their wonderful pink and yellow flowers. Oh, look at that. Now you can get as creative as you like here. I'm doing it quick to camera. And as Bob Ross says, there's no such thing as a mistake, just a happy accident. So if you go a little bit wrong, you can just say it was meant to be something else. So there you are, there's my magnolia. And now I want to put my daisies. So I'm just going to pull those off. And I'm going to pop my daisies. Now let me see, they would be at ground level. So they can be pushed into the bottom, just like this. It's great, isn't it? It's just like making a little A4 canvas. Sometimes they're so beautiful when you get them out of the oven, you really don't want to eat them. But they are something else, they're fabulous. And now we want some of our primula. So I actually think, no, I think we'll go traditional. I think we'll just put them as if they are growing on the ground by the daisies. So I'm going to push them in to the bottom. Now you might think, surely when you put that in the oven and bake it, it won't come out. It absolutely will. I guarantee you, especially these darker primula flowers, they do retain their colour and their shape. So although the bread will brown, you will still get this beautiful picture scene coming in the dish, which is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Put a yellow one in there and another yellow one. Now, what you want to do is you want to sprinkle some more salt onto the dough. Just sprinkle that on there. And then you want to cover that whole thing in oil. Okay, lots of lovely olive oil. Looks like loads, but it needs that when it's cooking in the oven. Oh, I'll tell you one thing we haven't put on there is we've not put on any of our lovely little Alexander blossom. We certainly want some of these little flowers. Now, I think I'm going to make these look like the sunshine. Okay, so I'm going to do a little sun just in the background of our magnolia tree there. If you can imagine that this is an Alexander sunshine. And it's such a beautiful sunny day that we need to definitely represent where we've been and what we've seen. So there we have a little sun explosion in the background there. So this is the focaccia which I am going to bake in the oven. And I'm going to put that there ready to go. And Blue Peter style, this is the focaccia that we have ready to serve for lunch today. When you put that in the oven, you want to leave it in there for 15 minutes on a gas mark 6. Gas mark 6, 15 minutes, pull it out. You do, however, need to let it rise before you put it in the oven, so I would leave that sitting on the kitchen side for 2 to 3 hours until the dough has reached the edges of the tin, then put it in the oven, gas mark 6, 15 minutes. You're going to have a nice fat risen focaccia. Now, moving on then to preparing our little salad canapes with our magnolia blossom and our wild ingredients. So, these magnolia blossoms make wonderful little cups. If I pull them out carefully away from the bottom of the little pineapples inside, if you remember, the little seeds look like little pineapples when we were talking about them at the very beginning of the film. I'm going to put them carefully on the plate. Now the larger petals make bigger cups, they can hold more. And these delicate little pineapples in the middle, these have a really spicy, almost cardamom-like flavour, and these work really well if you dry them completely and then grind them into a powder. They make a really beautiful edible spice. But we're not using those today, we're using the petals with their spicy, floral ginger flavour. So let's put a few more on the plate. Now what am I going to put inside these? Let's have a look. Now I've got a few very common basic ingredients that you will find in your salad drawer in your fridge at home. I've got a pepper, a cucumber and a carrot. The flavour of cucumber works really well with the ginger flavour of the magnolia petals. So I'm just going to put, now not everyone's a fan of cucumber, but if you are, this is a good one to have. I love cucumber, I think it's great. And actually, the leaves of daisies, daisy leaves, if you eat those, and they are edible too, they also have a cucumbery, sort of a peppery cucumber-like flavour to them. So you could be creative here and pop some daisy leaves. In fact, we have some little daisy leaves, so we'll pop some of those maybe on top of the cucumber. That'd look nice. Really pretty, actually. Again, being experimental. It's like when you're painting a picture, you're not quite sure where the next stroke of the brush is going, and sometimes in your kitchen with food you don't know where the next thing is being placed, and food can be as beautiful as the art you find in a gallery, to my mind. There's another daisy leaf just going on top of the cucumber there. Now I want to take my carrot. I want to take a little slice of carrot, maybe. Yeah, why not? Let's put it like this. So, oh, you can just hear all the birds behind me. It's glorious, isn't it? There's something really magical about this time of year. Everything is coming awake, alive, filling us with hope. Everything's having babies. There you are, put that on there. Some red pepper. Now how you cut these is up to you. I'm just going to roughly cut them into little, let me see, just little slithers. Pop that on there. Look at the colours, you know, things at this time of year should be bright, vibrant, cheerful. Put that on there. Got a few bold ones here, but I just want to show you a few completed ones before I move on. Okay, we want to take some of these Alexander blossoms. Now I'm going to use the slightly denser, more broccoli-shaped blossoms for these, rather than the opened flowers that we put into the focaccia. So, little broccoli head. I'm going to slice that in half, because the flavour is very, very strong. What you don't want to do is overpower the... Oh! The wind's going to come and blow them all away! This is the perils of outdoor cooking. Hopefully they'll stick together. Let's take another one of these. Right, pop that on there. Okay, coming together nicely. I want my 3-cornered garlic flowers. Definitely. I can't not put these on. They're so, so beautiful. Pop that on there. It's almost like you're preparing these in little shells, but the shells are a floral, gingery edible. Beautiful! Want some primula, definitely. Oh, put you on there. Primrose. So to get these to stick, I'm going to put some mirin, some Japanese vinegar. A little bit of mirin, and hopefully they should get the flowers to stick a bit better. There. Okay, mirin on. Primrose back on. And then what I want to do is sprinkle these with some sesame seeds and a little bit of sushi ginger, a little bit of pickled ginger, which will just enhance that gingery flavour of the magnolia petals. All of these ingredients are optional, obviously. You can put anything you like into these. Be creative. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Now our little canapes are there. If you had time, you'd want to fill this plate. What I'm going to do is, oh, I want to just put some more of these little white flowers on there. can't have too many of these wonderful ingredients. Look at that, just look at it, how gorgeous it is. Like little pixie pictures. Right, slice of your focaccia. Oh, just look at that, it's like, it smells amazing. You want to serve your lunch to your friends. In fact, what I like to do is this. Pick up your little gorgeous cup, put it on your focaccia and serve that to your friends and family. So there we are, our wild springtime focaccia with our little edible magnolia cups filled with our spring blossoms, some mirin vinegar, sesame seeds, and that is a little treat for when your friends come to stay in the spring.